Hello everybody, this is Word of Info and we're starting right away, and we have our distinguished guest, His Excellency Ambassador Michal Labenda, Ambassador of Poland in Egypt, and Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain University. Dr. Mohammed at the controls, I'm Najla Naguib, and we're with you until 5 o'clock, so stay with us. This is Word of Info, and you can call us at 257-89407.
Well, it's a great pleasure and a great honor to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Michal Labenda, the Ambassador of Poland in Cairo, a man with a great cultural experience, a man who speaks 7 or 8 languages, and he has taken his PhD in radical Muslim parties in Central Asia, served as ambassador of his country in Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan and Mongolia, served in his country's embassies in Uzbekistan, Japan and the United States. A great cultural background, political background, and very high education. And definitely the talk today is about his country, which I consider to be one of the greatest countries in Europe. Not because of the high tech or because the country is now on the verge of a great economic growth, one of the great pillars of the European community, a country that has a population of 38.5 million people who are active and working and very much into the market and into the technological and the high-tech industry, a country that has a lot of good health system and a good education system, but a country that has suffered a lot, especially in the 20th and the 19th century, and yet was able to rise like a phoenix. And in spite of the fact that the country has been devastated by different forces in the World War I, in World War II, and especially in World War II, and afterwards with the 44 years of occupation from the USSR, it is the oldest state. So does it really, is really Poland the victim of geography, sir?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for participating in this very interesting program. I'm really happy that, first of all, I'm really very happy that I have the opportunity to work in Egypt. This for me is really a great opportunity, and second, I'm really very happy to be invited as a guest to your program.
It's an honor and pleasure, sir.
It's the same for me. Thank you very much for warm words in the beginning. Of course, I always say that because we used to have a king in late 16th century, and he was very well known for speaking 7 languages. And as you may know, at that time we used to Poland was a very peculiar country because we used to choose our kings. We had elections for our kings. So one of our great thinkers of that time said, we are unfortunate enough to have chosen a king who speaks in 7 languages, but he has nothing to say in all of them. So it's really important that you speak, but you have a cultural background. Yes, cultural background, but you have something to say, something interesting about Poland. Of course, everything you said is true about our achievements, about the difficult times. We have changed much in the 20th century, and we, as I can see now, all those challenges we went through in 20th century, tragedy of the Second World War, Second World War, the tragedy of 45 years under communist rules. This was a lesson we received from the history, and of course nothing can be changed if you don't want to change it by yourself. This even the Quranic expression you know for sure that Allah doesn't change anything unless you don't change it for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
So exactly. So the same with us. We managed to change our fate, and exactly 25 years ago, exactly 30 years ago, we came on the path of democratic and economical reforms. We went through the path very quickly. We learned that, of course, we should learn the history. We should learn the lesson from our history, but we should be looking forwards. We should look into the future. And the geopolicy, which was really influencing our history by the last 1,000 years. Actually, when you look through those 10 centuries, you will see that this is all the time a concurrence and fight either with our biggest neighbors, Russia and Germany, or at least with one of them.
Two at a time or one at a time, but usually,
usually,
I mean, the Germans took the brunt even not before becoming a country by itself. Russia always had its say in the Polish history, unfortunately, for the 13th, 14th, and onwards, right?
Yes, this was a kind of historical balance, because, of course, there were times we were the leading force and we were the stronger partner, and we used to be the occupiers, or we were the winners of the wars. In many cases, it was Russia who invaded us, but this is always the fate about the neighbors. But what is more important, it's the fact that I don't see these scars in our future. As you know, the 20th century was stigmatized by two world wars. We suffered in both of those wars. The Second World War, which was, of course, started by the Nazi Germany, but where the Soviet Russia stepped into as the other occupying force in Poland. So you can say that Germany would be the arch-enemy of Poland. But when you look at our recent history, you see that Germany actually became our best and biggest partner, both in politics, in economy. More or less 80% of our agriculture production is going now to Germany. We have a very productive cooperation inside the European Union with Germany, and this is something which changed. This dramatic change, because never in our history our relationship wasn't so sincere, so productive, and so bilaterally effective. So nowadays, of course, we keep in mind the history, because everybody should know the history and take lessons from that. But we also know that Germany nowadays is one of our most trusted partners.
Mm-hmm. So this is what actually you have answered my second question, which is related to the same topic about World War II, because how do the Polish people of today look at this dreadful period of the World War II? Because in World War II, you suffered the occupation, the bilateral occupation, if I may use the word, in the early days of the war, and then with the blitzkrieg of the German and Barbarossa war, when Hitler attacked the Soviet Union, the Soviets, of course, were forced to withdraw, and Poland has fallen completely under the auspice of the Nazis. And then the Warsaw, and what happened in the Warsaw Uprisal, and where the Red Army stood waiting for the complete annihilation of the Warsaw resistors. This is very hard period and very harsh period. But now we're talking about today. We're not talking about yesterday. The Polish people of today, how do you look at this dreadful period? Do you always keep it in mind, reminiscing it, or do you say, it's okay, it's part of our history, but we have to go forward and we have not to talk about it every day in our life?
Yes, of course, this was such a dreadful period in our history when on the occupied Polish territory we had extermination of whole strata of Polish nation. The Germans, they on the occupied Polish territories, they conducted Holocaust of our Jewish compatriots,
yes,
which is something which of course cannot be forgotten, and there are more than 2 generations passed from the time of the end of the World War II. Yesterday we had the anniversary of the end of the World War II
in theater.
Yes. So this is lesson and the memory which cannot be erased. Basically, in every family in Poland, there is a memory of people who died or were persecuted during the occupation. And until now, you can see traces of war in many places in Poland. Warsaw, for instance, is basically on every step you meet, you see the monuments or tablets commemorating people who were killed, died in different spots in Warsaw. And of course, you have still the heroic people who participated in the Warsaw uprising. So this is all the time living memory. Now we are approaching the 70th anniversary of the beginning of the Second World War in 1st of September. And of course, the topic is here. The topic is present in our public discourse. But on the other hand, we know that Europe went a very, very far way, starting from the establishing of the communities for steel and atomic energy, coming all the way to establishing European Union as the organization, joining Poland, which joined the organization, and we, thanks to God, we live in a totally different reality.
What was
and
there
yes,
80 years ago. Yes.
It's different. And in my perception, the first word which should be describing to differentiate between Europe at the end of the 30s and Europe today is the word which is very important also for Polish people, which is solidarity. European Union is based on common values and also on solidarity. And the greatest achievement of all politicians who were putting this dream into reality is that nowadays the war between European countries is not difficult to imagine. It's impossible to imagine. We have our difficulties. We have different opinions. We have different points of view. We can differ and we can have our quarrels. But war is not an option. And this is in my opinion, is the biggest achievement of last 70 years.
Okay. So I think after the break we'll talk more about Poland of today, since we talked about history. So let's talk more about Poland of today.
Yes, back again, word of info, and you can call us at 257-89407. Today we have His Excellency Ambassador Michal Labenda, Ambassador of Poland in Egypt, and Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at H.E.Ambassador University. Hello, back again, word of info, and we're with His Excellency Ambassador Michal Labenda, Ambassador of Poland in Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at H.E.Ambassador University.
So talking about the recent past, I mean, I always call it the glorious past, because this is the 1989, when there was the end of the communist occupation or the communist reign of Poland, and the foundation or the founding of the Third Polish Republic. It was able to transfer the market to market economy with great success. How was that possible? I mean, at that time the president was Lech Wałęsa from the Solidarity group, and very rapidly things changed to more advanced, high-tech political figures and people who were much interested into the free market, and they were able to transfer the country from a communist controlled market to a free market with the least possible losses. How was that possible, sir?
This was really an amazing time. Of course, I remember it quite well. I was not part of any political party. I was not part of any political process because I was just 14 years old. But I remember very well this the changes which started around 1987, 1988, where the Communist Party recognized the failure and recognized the need to have talks with Solidarity movement to change something. I'm not a political researcher, so I don't know to which extent they were aware of the path they step on and where it was going to lead them. I don't know whether they knew that it's going to end with a total change of the system and the total loss of power by communists. But I remember the time when there was the so-called round table where the Solidarity movement and the communist authorities were sitting and were discussing the reforms planned and the period of changes which was ahead of them. And this was the time basically after 1989 we had partially free elections which shown a total disaster, which were a total disaster for the communists. And it was the time when they realized that their historical time is over. And I remember the consensus of almost whole nation that Poland should re-enter the Western world, and there was a consensus about some major things which should be achieved. So in 90s there was no doubt about the need or the possibility that Poland should join NATO. It was a national consensus that we should join NATO. There was a national consensus that we should aim to join European Union. And everybody knew that it's not just a dream, that when you wake up on one day you will be accepted as a member of NATO and you will be accepted as a member as a member of EU. Everyone understood that it means a great sacrifice, but first of all, a big amount of work which should be done because it was a total change of the system, of political system. We had also this shock therapy. It's perceived by many people in negative light, but still, this the shock therapy in economics. Those were the months which transformed the backwards, centrally organized economy of the state into a free market economy. Of course, the sacrifices were huge, but on the other hand, the advantages and the bonus afterwards, it was also worth to be done. So the secret of our success is the consensus and hard work of the whole nation. And I'm really proud that it was quite a short time, because the first free elections took part in 1989. In 10 years, we became members of NATO. In 15 years, we became members of European Union. So this is something extraordinary, and I'm very proud of my nation that we did it.
So this is an important point. There was, of course, great sacrifice from the part of the people. There were a lot of loss of their life savings, the decline in their incomes, and yet you were able to make a social net. which permits a free education, as it is still going on, and a free good health service. How was that be able to be maintained during such a crucial period? Now I know now the country and the government can support this system in 2019, but in the early 90s, when you were forced to make the great financial sacrifices in order to satisfy the needs of the European Union, how were you able to maintain these two vital services, the education and the health, for the population?
In my opinion, it was an unanimous agreement of all parties that some benefits of the deep social system which we had during socialist time, they have to be maintained. And those two elements were free education and free health system. And there was no discussion about any reforms would deprive people from their basic right, because right for the free education and right for the free health system, healthcare, it's one of the basic human rights. So there was no talks about depriving people of that. And of course, there was a drop in the living standards after the collapse of the socialist system, but it was a natural process, because every time you step on the path of the reforms, you have to have a time when you have drop in incomes, drop in the living standards. But the goal is to have it done and to be over as soon as possible, and we did it. We had the priorities, as you say, the health system, the education system, which we maintained and we reformed in such a way that it should serve even better to the people, and we managed to do it, and it was, of course, also thanks to support of that time European communities, because we had their support in our reforming process. We had their support in our way to accommodate our law, our system, political system to the norms of European Union. Of course, it was not that it was only us who worked on that. It was mainly us, but we had support of the European communities that time, and these all factors combined were favors of the success of Poland.
Something which is very strange is that the people who were very much emotionally involved in 1989, 1990, in the first elections, they have vowed to elect Lech Wałęsa as a president and as a controller as a leader of the country, and it is the same people who decided to get him out of power a few years later, because they wanted to get more professional people at the helm of economic situation, or what happened? I mean, how was that possible, the change of hearts?
Democracy.
I mean, we're talking history, of course.
Yes,
now. We're not talking politics. We're just talking history.
History and democracy. It's the system which is more or less unpredictable. You can remember that, for instance, Winston Churchill, who was one of the leading persons during of their leaders during World War II. He was ousted just after the end of the
1946 elections.
In the elections just after the end of the Second World War. Which doesn't mean that people stopped to trust him or stopped to appreciate his role during the time of the war, but they considered that it will be somebody more suitable and more capable to lead the nation in different times. Of course, this was something which was a surprise for many of us. That after 45 years of the communist rule, after the successful change of the political system, we had a president who was the symbol of all those changes, and he had to step down, and he had to give the presidency to basically member of the post-communist group. And actually, this was the story also which you saw in many other post-socialist countries, in
like
Romania,
Haklov himself from the Czech Republic.
Exactly. So this seems like a historical dogma. I don't know how to call it, but it happened in many places.
So his place now in the community or in the society, he's still respected, admired for his moves and his walks of life. And
around our former president Lech Wałęsa, there are many controversies. But it's not possible to take away his role as a symbol of the solidarity movement. And of course, we don't live in the world where we have only angels, and everybody has his weaknesses. The periods of life where he didn't behave as he would like to, or he would have chosen, or he should have chosen to. But Lech Wałęsa is the symbol of the solidarity. Of course, it's esteemed until now. And coming back to the question about the communists coming back to power, post-communists coming back to power, it's something which is very remarkable. That both our documents to join NATO and to join European Union were signed by President and Prime Minister who were part of the post-communist parties or movements. They, of course, it's not. These were post-communists, but they were not communists. So the priorities changed at that time. And this was also a historical process which just happened.
Since we're talking about history, there always remains something which is very nostalgic. The fact that the Polish army on the Western Front in World War II were professional officers and soldiers. They formed the Fourth Army as regards the amount of soldiers and officers who were enrolled in all fields, not just the armed forces, but the Air Force and the Navy. And these people were deprived from coming back to Poland because they will be prosecuted after the communist taking power and the Soviet invasion of Poland. These people in diaspora have suffered a lot. And I believe every family in Poland has a member of its family who has lived for 45 years away from his country because he fought for his country in this Polish army. How was this strong community of diaspora helped Poland after being allowed to come back? I mean, did they take a share in this new democratic society, or they stayed more or less in the countries that they found asylum in?
The period of communist times was really a period of a tragical period for us. We have stories which are really heartbreaking of people who were outrageous heroes fighting against Russians and Germans. And after the Second World War, they were persecuted by communist authorities. And in many cases, one of the examples is the Witold Pilecki. He was our soldier who voluntarily came to Auschwitz, concentration camp, to have information on the real situation which was there. He was fighting against Germans. He was one of the leading persons in our underground army. The person who, in any other circumstances, should be venerated and should be given as an example for the moral position and for the moral choices and self-sacrifice in difficult times. After the Second World War, he was imprisoned and he was shot by communist authorities under completely false accusations. He was until today we don't know the place he was buried. So and only after 50 years, only in Free Poland, his name was honored, was given the honor it should be given a long time ago. And those stories happened in Poland, but those stories were also the reason why many of people had to emigrate, and they found their place in Western Europe, in States. And of course, they were in many ways supporting people who suffered in communist Poland. One of our leading centers of political thought was formed in Paris. In Berlin, we had the Radio Liberty operating in Polish for Poland. So our emigration had a big role in
the final liberation, right?
In the final liberation. Of course, we had also people like Pope John Paul II, and his role in falling down the communist system is very well known. After the liberation, many of those people came back to Poland, and they were, of course, the part of those forces changing Poland into a better place, changing Poland into a modern democratic society, and we are very thankful for that. So, yeah. Many of them came back, and they were part of these forces changing Poland into the better place.
Yes.
So back again, word of info, and you can call us at 2578-9407. And we have His Excellency Ambassador Michal Labenda, Ambassador of Poland in Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at H.E.Ambassador University.
The cultural heritage of Poland remains a very important pillar of its identity, especially with the saving of 14 of these heritage sites miraculously during World War II. So how far does this cultural integrity of Polish people affected their survival during all these hard times during the 20th century?
Definitely, the fact that we really stick to our language, our culture and religion was a factor who helped the Polish nation to survive as a nation. It's some people consider to be a miraculous fact that actually the flourishing of Polish literature, of Polish arts, Polish culture comes from the 19th century. It is the century where Poland didn't exist as a country. And there are voices which say that actually all our modern culture has its roots in Romanticism, which is the movement from the 19th century, and also the fact, for instance, religion was so important for Poles. It helped survive very much.
92% of the population are almost Catholic, right?
95% is Christian and Catholic. So we are a very homogeneous country, and this fact, and also the very strong position of the Catholic Church inside the people, inside the nation, helped to survive those difficult times during communism. Communists were at power. And this gives you a sense of placement, because our attachment to our fatherland, attachment to the place we are born, the attachment to our culture, is very strong until now. And this of course, this concept develops during the history, because now I consider that Poles. We are both very much attached to our history, attached to our culture, but we are also very open for our people, which makes us a little bit unique inside Europe. And of course, this is the question of being being a part not only of the Polish culture, but to be the part of the European culture. It's very important nowadays for everybody in Poland.
So the fact that Egypt and Poland has had a very strong relation all through the years gives you a lot of work to start on and to build on what your predecessors did. And how are the relations going between Egypt and Poland, economically wise and culturally wise, of course?
This is Egypt and Poland. We have a very deep-rooted relationship, and if you go throughout our history, this is a very fruitful cooperation. Poles and Polish people, we have a lot of traces left here in Egypt, and you are indeed right that it's something. It's a very good basis for building up the next steps of our relationship. I think that in contact between Poland and Egypt, we should focus on four things or four areas. One of the most important, I mean, all four are very important. Let's say economy. Our yearly turnover is around 400 million euro, which is something to be developed. It's not a bad level of economical turnover, but it's something we should work to increase. The second thing we have is tourism and touristic sector. We have around 300,000 people coming every year to Egypt. This number is growing, and majority of them come for courts on Red Sea, but many of them are coming to visit the most important historical sites in Egypt. And this is something which is very important, because this contact between people, the more people remain in this contact, the better. And the better is also understanding of each other. The third area is the area of archaeology. Poles, we are here present for last 8 years. So our archaeologists started the activity in Egypt in the 30s last century, and for last 80 years we developed a very good basis. We are trustworthy partners of Egyptian authorities.
It's not only in ancient Egypt, but I think you have a lot of places, sites like Islamic site. I mean, Kurkumas and Inal are part of your domain in the Polish Culture Center, right?
Yes, because we don't concentrate so much about excavation and not only about the old time, the ancient Egypt times. We have places where we discover also the Coptic heritage and the Islamic heritage. Yes. But we don't only discover the heritage, but we also try to preserve it. And nowadays the main idea is not to transfer the artifacts to the museums. The main idea is to preserve them on the spot where they belong to. And this is our specialization. So we have three of our focuses, which is archaeology, which is economy, which is tourism, but we also should think about our scientific cooperation, the cooperation between universities. Egypt for a long time is a beloved place for students to come to master the Arab language. So we have also many scholarships for Egyptian students coming or planning to come to Poland.
In the 60s and the 70s, there were a lot of Egyptians who traveled to, at that time, communist Poland to have degrees in scientific degrees, whether it's in chemistry, physics, and things like that. Are you planning to increase that cooperation, this scientific part of cooperation and scholarship in the new Poland of today?
We are trying to increase it, even if the pattern of cooperation change a little bit, because our universities are very independent. So what we work on is the scholarship they offer, and we would like to pass this offer to as many Egyptian universities, as many Egyptian students as possible. We have also a very convenient and very comparatively cheap offer for paid studies, because Poland can offer the same level of education as in Europe, in other European countries for less
more
less
affordable
money,
prices.
most affordable prices. Yes, exactly. So this is also something we want to bring as our offer to Egyptian young people.
In which field? And the study will be in Polish or in English?
No, of course, for people who would like to study in Polish, we have a very rich offer, but more and more specialization, mostly like for instance in medicine, but also in technical studies, are available in English.
So there are more fields of cooperation. Do you have Polish investments here in Egypt? I mean, as regards, or it's only trade business between Egypt and...
I wouldn't say it's only trade. It's mainly trade. And there are few investments. And also one of very important parts of my job here is to show to my to Polish entrepreneurs, to Polish businessmen, the opportunities which are available in Egypt for their investments.
Poland now is very much involved in the high-tech industries, in the computer business and things like that. Is this, of course, because of the great background of the highly educated Polish that were there in 1990 and were able to grab the chance when the market was open for investment. Do you think that these companies, the new high-tech companies, could have a chance in investing part of their factories or research work here in Egypt?
I believe yes. Nowadays we have a big concurrence all over the world, because there are places which are much closer to Poland than Egypt, where Polish investments would be interested to place their investments in. But I believe that the opportunities available in Egypt should find their way to the Polish business and to Polish business people who can really afford, and for them it would be very profitable to start the investments here and start the activities here in Egypt.
The cultural cooperation in the field of music, since Poland has had a beautiful history with Chopin and other famous composers. Do you have some of your conductors and players come to play in the Cairo Symphony Orchestra as visitors or something like that?
We have our ensembles of dance, our ensembles of songs coming to Egypt. Now we have a project with Cairo Opera. We would like to have some Polish opera singers come to Cairo. Of course, we have almost every year the Chopin competition here for children and young people. So many things are going on, and I hope that we can do even more to have a very rich cultural offer of Polish culture for Egyptian auditory.
The last question, since we're into culture, the translation between the Arabic literature to Polish language and vice versa. Are there any projects that are going this direction? Because I know that Polish people are avid readers. Do they have a window to get exposed to the work of for example, Naguib Mahfouz or the other Arab famous writers?
Yes, as far as I know, all works of Naguib Mahfouz, including those ones which were discovered recently, they were translated or they are being translated into Polish, and which is important, they are not being translated by means of English, but they are being translated from the original, so from Arabic into Polish. We have also some projects because we would like to have some Polish literature being the modern Polish literature to be translated into Arabic, including books for children. We start to think about projects to translate the Polish children's literature into Amiya, not into Fusha, which would be a very new project. So those are things on the way. I hope that it happens.
Of course. Sir, thank you very much for coming this afternoon.
It's my pleasure.
To our Radio Cairo and enlightening us with a lot of information about a dear country to our hearts, Poland.
Thank you very much for having me here.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you. And by this we come to the end of Word of Info. We were with His Excellency Ambassador Michal Labenda, Ambassador of Poland in Egypt, Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain University, Dua Muhammad at the controls. I'm Najla Naguib. See you next Thursday, same time, same station, FM 95.4.